It is 2023. Every single Walking Dead show, with the exception for the one that actually matters, the ones who live, has aired. It's time to re-rank all the seasons. I have now re-watched season 11 again, so now it's time to rank them, with the exception of Fear the Walking Dead. I'm not re-watching Fear the Walking Dead. Maybe the first couple, I'm not watching past like season 4. No shot. Like I said, I talked for like 2 hours about this last time. So this time we're going to be a bit quicker about it. Let's just start with like season 1 right away. I don't think you can see a couple of them, but like under my face there's still a couple more. Season 1, these are probably going to move around because as usual I want to go for a normal distribution. Hopefully. It's not going to happen, but hopefully. Season 1 is an excellent season. There are things that I'm still kind of mixed on. I think the biggest thing with season 1 for me is the CDC. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it, because on one hand, it does establish the no hope angle very, very quickly, even though it feels kind of artificial, you know? And it also answers something that maybe should have been figured out, like, naturally. Like in the comic, we have the scene of Rick realizing that people turn anyway, and then he goes back to Shane. In the show, he already knows it, which does create some pretty cool situations. Like there is the scene in the bar where he shoots the dude in the head, and these few other things. So there is a bit of information asymmetry between us and Rick, right? So that's cool. Season 1 is basically a perfect season, though. I think I'm going to put it S tier. I have basically no complaints aside from that. It might not be the best season, but it is an incredible season. Every time I see something from season 1, genuinely, it's been so long that now I just get chills. It is such nostalgia that it is insane. Take me back. Take me back to those days. Season 2. Season 2 is another excellent season. The only problem that I could have with Season 2 is that the middle of it is very, very slow, because they didn't have any budget. We all know what happened behind the scenes. Frank Darabont was let go for some not very nice comments, and then they basically rewrote half the season on the fly, basically. The premiere is entirely written on the fly, which kind of worked out. I think the highway sequence is actually really, really cool. But the middle of the season is kind of hit or miss, right? Obviously, Sophia dies, which is very big in terms of the future, really. It's a very good episode, but in terms of the future and their whole relationship with Carl and everything, obviously that like starts this huge ripple effect that changes everything in the story, which is very visible by the end. But season 2 is an incredible season. Basically no complaints, aside from that stretched out middle, so it's gonna go in A tier. Very good season. Just a bit too long. A little bit too long. If memory serves me right, I think it adapts like 4 to 5 issues, which is insane. For a 13-episode season, it was very slow. Luckily, some of the filler was good. Very good, even. So, you know. Season 3, my favorite season. I've thought about it a lot. Season 3 is probably my favorite season even now. I love Season 3 so much. Season 3, like the switch up that we saw from the slow-paced episodes of Season 1 and 2 to the full-blown action in Season 3, that was such a cool transition. I will never forget watching Seed, that's the premiere of Season 3. The opening sequence is just Rick blasting through the doors with a suppressed pistol, killing the walkers, and he just keeps going and going and going. We go into the courtyard of the prison. Beth sings her cool little song. I think it was Parting Glass, right? And then I'm like, wait, the episode is still going. And we go into the prison, and we clear the prison. And I'm like, okay, surely that's it. But the episode keeps going. And it just keeps going and going and going. That pace was insane. I think it's kind of a controversial opinion nowadays, but I think if this is the pace that the show maintained, the only problem it would have is it would have caught up with the source material. Very quickly, it would have caught up with the comic. That aside, though, if this is the pace the show maintained, I think it would have been one of the greatest shows ever created. Like, straight up. If this is the kind of stuff that we saw with All Out War and the Whisper War, it would have been insane. It would have been absolutely insane. Season 3 notoriously adapts, like, how much is it? It's something ridiculous. I don't remember the number, but it adapts like a ridiculous number of issues. The only complaint about Season 3, probably episode 13 is a bit of a weird one. And also Season 3 marks the start of the 18916 formula, which is not good. 18916 formula, basically what we saw all the time. The premiere is big, the middle is kind of slow. Season 3 was still a bit less of that, right? Because episode 4 is probably one of the biggest of the entire show, with Laurie's death. But other than that, it establishes the whole thing of the premiere is big, The mid-season finale is big, sets up a cliffhanger that is then resolved in episode 9, and then we have the big finale, right? It's kind of the trend that we saw for the rest of the show. That is established here. So this is where The Walking Dead becomes sort of formulaic, if you can call it that. Again, that is kind of subverted with things like Season 9, where the big thing, the border, happens in episode 15, but the formula is still there. Season 3 is a perfect season. And this poster, I've said many times, this poster right here, my favorite poster. The trailer for Season 3, one of my favorite trailers ever, with Carrie Kimmel's Black. That song, on my Spotify playlist forever. This was when Walking Dead was just like an all-time high for me. God damn it. I remember this so well. I even remember, to give you a point of reference, how much I remember this. I remember buying a pair of Vans shoes. They were green, and I came home and watched The Walking Dead. That is how much I remember about like this period in my life. It was the best. Season 4, another controversial one, because I love Season 4. The Season 4 trailer, Serpents, another absolute banger. The sickness arc. I know it's controversial because technically it's filler. It's kind of meaningless in the grand scheme of things because it just takes out people we don't care about. But I like it. I think it explored something that frankly should have been explored a lot more. The fact that we hadn't really explored like an illness angle, and this goes for the comics as well, by the way. Neither the comics nor the show ever really addressed the fact that people just get sick. You just fall sick and that's it. In this case, it was obviously very, very brutal, and a lot of people died. Which is kind of what we saw way later with Gabriel, right? And his eyes going completely messed up. I think we should have seen more stuff like that. I think it was brutal. I think it was so gruesome. It was dark. It was great. Herschel's arc, perfect. I love it. Herschel in this season right here, they like took the comic Herschel and said like, listen, we're gonna make you 50 times better. Season 4 was so good. The governor's attack, maybe it should have happened faster. Maybe it should have been resolved in Season 3. But considering what we got with the start of Season 4, I'm fully on board. And then the latter half of Season 4. My only complaints, even now, is probably Still. The episode where the story stood still. That is when we saw bottle episodes, which was not great. Not great. And only became a bigger problem later on. Aside from that, Season 4, the Claimers, another great arc. I love the Claimers. The Claimers are one of my favorite villains, even though they're basically around for like a couple episodes. They're taken from the they have a proper name in the comic, but I always forget them. I don't think it's the Marauders. I think the Marauders are technically another group. I get them mixed up. But there's like the random dudes that stop Rick, Abraham, and Carl on the street, right? In the show, it's remixed. And also Glenn with Abraham. God damn, that was so good. Season 4, I think it's gonna go S tier. He's not better than Season 3, I think. I think for me, it's also honestly better than Season 1. I think so. Also, Season 4 was still when Daryl was cool. And by cool, I mean like actually cool and not just a god. We'll get to it. Alright, Season 5. Oh my god, I think last time we like alternated between Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead because I don't remember it being so stacked at the top. Because I love Season 5. I love Season 5 with every fiber of my being. Episode 1, No Sanctuary. An absolute bloodbath. That kind of makes very little sense. But it's cool. It still made enough sense for it to not to feel ridiculous. You know? Like Rambo Carol, it was kind of already the start of the so-called Walking Dead problem that I now say a lot. I think it still made enough sense. Like my suspension of disbelief wasn't broken yet. The dude having his throat slit, goddamn, it was horrifying. It was terrifying. And then going into the Hunter's arc, which was very different compared to the comic, right? Because in the comic we find them. In the show we bait them into the church. And then Rick emerging from the darkness. Oh, I will never forget that. There are complaints with Season 5. Ones that I'm still going in circles with. Because Beth's arc is a complex one. Because Beth's story, up until then, was shaping up to be really interesting. She was becoming independent, which you couldn't really say for the rest of her story, right? She was becoming an independent survivor, and I think there would have been so much great story potential with her and Maggie, even her and Carl. Basically every character who was either younger or had a closer link with her. Whereas she was just killed off, and that's it. On one hand, I think it perfectly conveys something that is missing in the later seasons of The Walking Dead. Like the spontaneity of these events. It is unsatisfying. She just dies and that's it. It just happens and we move on. Because that is the story you're following. She had this arc, and it is blatantly cut short. It's unsatisfying, you're not supposed to like it, it's uncomfortable, but it is what it is. And I feel like that is missing in the later seasons of The Walking Dead. And now when I look back at it, I almost like it from that respect, right? The fact that it was just brutally cut short, and that's it. There are no apologies, nothing. It ended, move on. On the other hand, though, when you think of it in the context of a story, it is a weird thing that her entire arc slams into a wall and nothing happens. So I am very, very torn on that, how I feel about it now. I think I've said all of this in the retrospective as well. Well, my thoughts on that are still kind of the same. Also, I think this was when people were starting to drop off because the show was becoming very depressing. Because Beth dies and the next episode opens with Tyrese's death, and Tyrese's death is not sudden, it's very slow, very, very messed up, very dark, and horrible. Tyrese dies a very, very sad death. And then a couple episodes later, after we've lost two of our own, we meet Aaron, and we are taken into Alexandria. And it's like, oh, we reached the safe zone. No, Noah dies, and his story is also abruptly cut short. Now you're going to die in the freaking RV. Never forget the knife party song. Season 5 is a mixed bag. It's a very mixed bag. It has some very, very high highs, but it also has some low lows. The best part of the season is definitely the Hunter's arc, and absolutely the the survivors on the road part. Right, this is like 509, 510, 511. The lead up to Alexandria, where we have the nighttime episode. Rick still has his brown T-shirt that is like completely stained. Half the time he's completely soaked in sweat, and he's going around with the flare gun. He shoots the zombie with the flare gun. One of my favorite moments in the entire story. Another thing, the fact that I remember these things so clearly, and I don't remember barely any of season 11, I think also speaks volumes. This is when the cast was relatively small, and each and every one of them were very, very important. And is also why we remember characters like Noah, who was around for like all of 4 episodes. Actually, a little bit more, because he was introduced in 506. So 506, 507, 508. I think he died in episode 12. Well, he was around for a little bit longer. But the fact that we remember characters like that, even though they weren't around for long, that's a big W. Very, very big W. Season 5 is great. Season 5 is going to go up there. You know what? No. There it is. Yeah. That's good. Should we switch it up? I think we should switch it up. Let's do Fear the Walking Dead Season 1. The best part about Fear the Walking Dead Season 1, as I've said before, is 2 things. Number 1, it's set in a city. We hadn't seen that before. It's great. Number 2, we saw the actual collapse of society. For a little bit. Not for long, for a little bit. I think we should have seen a lot more of it. I think there should have been an entire sub-arc of us slowly seeing the army crumble and everything crumble. The reason why I don't think we've seen it is because I don't think it makes that much sense. Because, you know how in the Commonwealth we fend off the entire horde and we have like a few soldiers? We had that at the start of the apocalypse. I think that is genuinely the reason why we haven't really seen the start of the apocalypse in The Walking Dead. I think it's very hard to sell that the zombies are actually a threat. Because how they're portrayed in the show, I think an actual collapse is kind of hard to believe. But then again, I mean, yeah, let's actually not get into that. Anyway, I think Fear the Walking Dead Season 1 is strong. It's not going to be up there with the main show for me, though. I don't remember where I put it last time. Maybe my thoughts have changed. It's a good season. I don't think it's as strong. Maybe this is just because Madison came back and her character is weird. And Alicia is also weird. And none of the characters I care about really had any sort of arcs. Maybe that's why I'm moving it down. Where do I put it? I'm going to put it there. I'm going to put it there. The Walking Dead Season 6. The Walking Dead Season 6 is a mixed bag. The start of the season, the Horde, the Quarry, the Wolves, pretty cool. Pretty cool. The lead up to No Way Out. Why? Why is there a mid-season finale for No Way Out? Why would you do that? Because 18916. God damn it. Very unfortunate. Also, the fact that Carl's whole eye thing is just entirely skipped over. If you look at the issues, I also mentioned this in the retrospect, I remember this very well. If you look at the number of issues Season 6 technically adapted, it seems like it is a very, very fast season, even though it's not. Because there's an entire volume that the show never adapts. Like, there was a whole thing in the comic book with Carl and potentially not having his memories and his, like, whole head being mixed up for what I think are obvious reasons. That is not in the show. They just skipped over all that. And we just move into, like, Jesus' introduction and all that. Which is a weird one. But it is what it is. The latter half of Season 6 is, I think, very strong. Jesus' introduction, moving right into the hilltop, moving right into the Saviors, the satellite sequence, which is still very, very messed up. There are a few episodes in there that are kind of... they're bottle episodes, but they're kind of fine. You know, like the episode we see with Carol, Maggie, and, I don't remember the Saviors' name. But they're, like, captured, right? That whole sequence is kind of odd, in retrospect, but it was thrilling enough. It was thrilling enough. And the finale of Season 6 is one of the greatest television episodes ever made. The suspense throughout the episode is insane. It is very dramatized. It is very dramatized. Like with the whole, we turn a corner, there's like 10 dudes. We drive off. We continue driving, there's 100 dudes. We drive off. We turn the corner, there's like 1,000 dudes. It's very dramatized. But goddamn is the suspense perfect. The finale of Season 6 is, it adapts the comic, I think, flawlessly. Probably even better. With the whistling stuff, that is leveraging degrees of freedom that the comic book never had. I say this a lot with anime as well, right? Like, reading manga on a page is one thing. Hearing the voice acting, seeing the movement, hearing all the, like, sound effects and everything, it just brings the whole thing to life. And that is what the Season 6 finale did. It is an excellent finale. Except I think it should have showed us one of the deaths. I think it completely shot itself in the foot by making it a total cliffhanger. Not only that, I think it also severely hurts Season 7, because it starts on a conclusion, which makes no sense. It's like if the Season 3 finale, because this didn't happen with Season 5, by the way, and the reason why it didn't happen with Season 5 is because we start Season 5 with a conclusion and move right into another conflict with the same hunters, right? It's like a pit stop. The same way we wrap up the Governor's arc in Season 4, right? So it's not that we open Season 4 with technically a conclusion. Is that like Season 3's finale was only like a pit stop. Season 7, we open Season 7 with the conclusion to the arc that we started in Season 6, and there is no immediate conflict, there is no immediate resolution. And another thing with Season 7, that is I still haven't ranked Season 6. Season 6, there. Maybe I should put it above. The thing you have to remember with Season 1, why I keep moving it down, is because it has the natural debuff of setting things up, right? It's a short season, and it needs to do a lot. It does all of those things perfectly. And another thing, what we're seeing right here is the greatest praise a television show could get. It doesn't start at its peak and just fizzle out immediately. The Walking Dead was a show that started and kept getting better. And that is a very, very good thing. I think Season 6 will barely edge it out for me. I'm kind of tempted to move this up as well, honestly. Nah, I'm gonna leave that there. Okay, it's gonna be like that. The Walking Dead, Season 7. Like I said, Season 7 starts with the conclusion, mega odd. Then they put in 2 bottle episodes, very odd. They skip over literally what happened after the freaking thing. What? We just lost 2 people in the most gruesome way anyone could ever imagine, and you don't show what happened afterwards? Why would you do that? Season 7 is I don't know what the idea was with Season 7. Because a lot of people don't like Season 7 because it's constant misery. That's not my problem. The problem with Season 9 is that it's planned weirdly and kind of poorly. I do think it's dragged out. I absolutely think it's dragged out. But I don't think that's the biggest problem it even has. Because even if you binge it, it feels weird. Even binging Season 7 is odd. It's a very odd season. The fact that you have the premiere of Season 7, which beats you down, and then you get into the Kingdom episode, and then you get into the Daryl episode, right? On one hand, it's like a breath of fresh air, because 702 is one of the most peaceful episodes in the entire show. If you watch Season 7, Episode 2 with the Kingdom, there's the scene of the choir singing. Why do I remember all these things? There's the scene of the choir singing. It's very peaceful. I love that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes of Season 7. There's just the scene of the choir singing and Morgan training with the staff. It's so good. I love it. Then we have the trash people. Season 7 is so weird. And the finale of Season 7 is like the pinnacle of Walking Dead being dumb. It's like everyone shows up. It's like the Avengers assemble. It's so dumb. I really don't like it. I really, really don't like it. I don't like it at all. And the fact that, like, the comic book, literally the comic book, this is my favorite factoid about Season 7. The mid-season finale of Season 7 and the finale of Season 7 happens back-to-back in the comic. Literally half of the season never happens in the book. It's insane to me. Season 7 is carried by the start of it and by small bits of the middle. As much as I love the start of it, I'm gonna put it there. The Season 7 premiere is just like the finale, one of the greatest episodes of television ever created. It's gonna go below Fear the Walking Dead. Season 8. The only redeeming quality Season 8 now has, in retrospect, is that it's Rick's final hurrah. He's obviously in Season 9, but in Season 9 his arc is very weird and very contrived. I'm not a huge fan of the bridge arc in retrospect. I'm not a huge fan. It feels odd after the saviors and everything. We'll get to it. Season 8 is the pinnacle of The Walking Dead being dumb. Not really, that's actually kind of later seasons. Season 8 forgets that it's a survival story. You know how people say that Season 3 is a action series and not a survival story? Season 8 said hold my beer. Because if in Season 3, a lot of people were shooting automatic rifles, everything was very fast, we were blazing through buildings, we were just like literally killing walkers left, right, and center, it still felt dangerous, and it still felt weighty. In Season 8, we have a scene of a dude using a mounted machine gun, shooting at Rick and Daryl, and Daryl one-taps him with a pistol. Why would you do that? And also in Season 8, there's the scene of Rosita with the RPG. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. It's so bad. It's so bad. Oh my god. It's gonna go right there. It's gonna go right there. And let's not even talk about the fact that it kills off Carl. The dude bought a house. Just in case. I've talked about this ad nauseum in the retrospective, but in case someone has stumbled onto this tier list, I don't know where this rumor comes from. Chandler Riggs did not go to college. He bought a house to film the show in Georgia. I don't think he bought the house in Georgia, but he bought a house closer to where they film. He was fired. Literally fired. By Scott Gimple. His parents wrote a very angry letter. Go watch the Walking Dead retrospective. It's right there. Season 8 is a bad season. I don't like Season 8. It's gonna go there. Let's do Fear the Walking Dead Season 2. Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, not a huge fan of the boat, but Fear the Walking Dead Season 2 is kind of good. Problem with Fear the Walking Dead Season 2 and 3, I don't remember where one ends and the other begins, honestly. It's kind of blurred together for me. Season 2 mostly revolves around the hotel, right? That was good. And I think this is where we first see... Maybe that was the start of Season 3. I don't remember. I'm not a big lore master with Fear the Walking Dead, because honestly, I stopped caring after a certain point, after right here. This is where I stopped caring. I'll put it there. I'll put it there. It makes far more sense than most of Season 7. It's definitely better than Season 8. I think seeing the city, for me, just wins it out slightly. Very, very slightly. And you know what? Since we're doing Fear the Walking Dead, let's do Season 3. Season 3 of Fear the Walking Dead is some of the best Walking Dead material ever. If you want to see the definition of wasted potential, watch Fear the Walking Dead Season 3. Straight up. Watch the whole thing, and then ask yourself, how could this get wrong? How could this go wrong? Right? Like, what could happen here for all of this to go wrong? And when you have that idea in your mind, make it 10 times worse. And then go watch Season 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8. Is it going to be up there with the bests? It's definitely not my favorite season, not at all. With how Fear the Walking... Like, the problem with Fear the Walking Dead Season 3 now is also the fact that, like, most of it has now been heavily retconned. If you want to talk about... I'm just going to put it right here. It's not going to be the worst season, which we'll get to. Fear the Walking Dead final season is like... Remember that character? Somehow they return... You know how in Invincible... what's the dude's name? I don't want to spoil it, so we'll keep it very vague. There's the dude that somehow returns, and it's a mystery. That is Fear the Walking Dead Season 8. But there is no mystery. Everyone survives. Everyone. It is what it is. Fear the Walking Dead has the Walking Dead's problem, but they indulge in it, right? If in The Walking Dead, characters can do no wrong, and they're never in danger, like Carol falls in a cave, nothing happens. Daryl does like some dumb thing, number 545, he's totally fine. He gets stabbed by Alpha in the thing, right? In his, what's the artery called? There's an artery that runs like literally where he was stabbed, and next scene, he's fine. In the next scene, he's totally fine. I think it was maybe the next episode, I don't remember the exact details of it, but it's dumb. right? So The Walking Dead does that. It doesn't indulge in this God mode. Fear the Walking Dead indulges in it. You see a character literally die in front of your eyes, but they return. They always return. It's like, it's Game of Thrones, basically. The later seasons of Game of Thrones have this as well. In the later seasons, you see Jon Snow. He's in danger. No, he's not in danger. He's gonna be fine. That's that. I'm going on very many tangents, but it is what it is. I'm gonna put this... I think it's gonna go... Kinda want to do this. No, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna leave it at S tier. We'll see how the tier list shapes out. Season 9. Now that I've written the whole retrospective for it, and I've thought about it a lot, let's just say I had a much better image of it in my head than I did when I actually thought about it a lot. Season 9 is a bit worse than I remember. A bit worse. I think it's better than Season 7, like generally speaking. Think they should have killed Rick off entirely? I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens with, that's the worst thing they could do. Honestly, maybe not even. Maybe, like, who cares anymore? Like, killing Rick off, I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, I think it's going to depend on what happens in The Ones Who Live. Like, if The Ones Who Live is another action ride where nothing matters and Rick has God mode, then yeah, I'll agree with you. Then it's going to be another case of, wow, Andrew Lincoln wanted to leave, but we still really, really hope that he comes back so we can make more money. Let's just airlift him out. We'll see what happens. Season 9 is an odd one. The start of Season 9 is weird. Rick's exit episode. If you want to talk about Rick's exit episode, 905, it is again one of the greatest television episodes I think that have ever been made. Purely from like a cinematography point of view, from like a callback perspective, from the direction of the episode, it is beautiful. It is so good. I know a lot of people don't like the drawn-out deaths, right? The whole episode is Rick's death, supposedly. But I love the episode. Also, the way they do the time jump at the end of the episode, like we focus on the house, and it just fades into it being rubble, and you're like, wait, what? And the time skip happens, that's really good. I think the fact that they tried emulating the comic with the time skips, but there are multiple time jumps, which kind of messes up the logic of everything that comes after. That is something they just didn't really think through properly. I've talked a lot about that in the retrospective as well. Right? The fact that they just have so much more time than the comic ever had, because they have the 7-year time jump, and the 1.5-year time. I don't even remember the months anymore, but there's like, if the comic has like those 2 years, the TV show has like 4 times that. It's insane. But they don't really seem to think about it, that there has been that much more time. That's kind of odd. The ending of Season 9 is obviously its strongest bit. Henry and Lydia, though, that's a couple of odd ones. And the fact that, like, I guess we might as well talk about Season 10 right away. Right? I've just finished covering Season 10 in the retrospective. I think when I first ranked it, I ranked it relatively high. Now that I've spent months thinking about it, I'm gonna rank it much, much lower. I'm gonna rank it much lower. Because the fact that most of Season 10 happens as a result of what is effectively Henry's death, and when you compare it to the comic, and I think about what it could have been, it hurts my poor little heart. The satellite at the start makes no sense. It's the weirdest plot device I have ever seen in my life. The strongest part of Season 10 is Eugene's B-plot. Straight up. Because I think the Horde was done better in the book. Negan was done better in the book, definitely. Negan in the show is kind of flip-floppy, and it really, really bothers me. I think I'll put it there. I might actually put maybe this is blasphemy, but I might put Season 8 on top of Season 10 at this point. Maybe. Because I'm just thinking about, like, even the extra episodes, right? With the extra episodes, there is a very complex conversation to be had, right? Because one part of me is like, obviously these were produced under the restriction circumstances, right? And they were not promised to be an extended season. It was not. It was just a case of, we're going to tell some extra stories because, like, to tide you over, basically, right? But at the same time, there's like that cynical part of my brain that makes me ask, okay, but if some of them are like the soup episode that I unironically skipped in the retrospective, if it was something like that, why did you even bother making it? It's not really that enjoyable. It just bloats the season overall. Here's Negan is obviously incredible. Here's Negan is incredible in every sense of the word. Princess and Eugene at the end of the season, they're both goated. Actually, Ezekiel as well. Not just Eugene and the Princess, but also Ezekiel. Ezekiel is a very, very good one. Other than that, though, season 10, it's a weird one. Very weird one. I think I'll leave it there. It's insane to me that after all these years, I've put season 8 on top of season 10. Wild to me. Season 11. Or maybe let's do season 4. We're just gonna go there. As soon as Morgan joined the show, the start of it was decent with John, and it very, very quickly went downhill. I don't know what happened. We might as well do the rest of them. Season 5 is incredibly dumb. Put it right here. The season 5 is where the beer balloon happened, right? Or is that the end of season... No, that's not the end of season 4. I think the beer balloon is in season 5. It was very, very dumb. This, like, Fear the Walking Dead became Morgan and Friends. It was literally like, we're gonna ride around and do daily quests, basically. I don't know what it was trying to do. It was like, we've set up the first 3... Which, by the way, the fact that the show ends with a soft implication that they are kind of, like, villainous. But season 5... The first 3 seasons are kind of setting up the main group to be sort of antagonists, right? That's where the whole these may be the Whisperers origin story came from. There was a very, very popular theory back in the day that Fear the Walking Dead is the origin story of the Whisperers, which I think would have been genius, by the way. I think it would have been excellent. It wasn't. Then there was the theory that they're going to be antagonists, hence Fear the Walking Dead. They weren't. Well, they were. But then Morgan came into the picture and they become the best friends ever. They ride around doing daily quests. And then by the end, they're like nukes dropped and they kind of become baddies, but they also kind of don't. The best thing about the end of Fear is that it at least gave characters closure. It implied some sort of ending. The rest of these seasons, I could honestly just stack right here. I still think, I think season 5 was the worst. I might even move this up, just comparatively. Because after the nukes dropped, and freaking Strand is in his tower, and then you have the, that's in season 8, right? The freaking thing that, like, yoinks the kids. Oh my god. Oh my god. It felt like a, and I'm not saying this just because of the nukes, okay? I'm not saying this just because of nukes. It felt like a weird mixture of Fallout, and, like, Dying Light, and, like, I don't even know. It just didn't have the grit and, like, the grounded vibe that The Walking Dead had. Which, to be fair, is true ever since the start of Season 8. And really since, like, the middle of Season 7. World Beyond Season 1 is probably the worst thing that the Walking Dead franchise has ever put out. It's even worse than Morgan and Friends. Because at least with these, we had, like, capital with the characters. The Walking Dead World Beyond, you know what it felt like? I should go back and rewatch it again. Maybe now that I've seen the whole thing, maybe I won't be that salty. It felt like the show was stringing you along for the CRM lore, basically. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like you were following the kids, and it was like, hey, they get into some shenanigans, they use the dumbest weapons known to man, like the freaking stick with the rock. And then at the end, it's like 3 seconds of CRM lore, and suddenly I'm like, yes, I'll be back next week. That's what it felt like. Season 2 is definitely better, though. Season 2 is much better. I think I used this comparison last time as well. If Season 1 is a 0.2, and Season 2 is 10 times better, it's still a 2. I think I'll put it there. Tales of the Walking Dead. How do I rank Tales of the Walking Dead if it's missed potential more than anything else? Because the Tales of the Walking Dead episodes, they weren't meant to be, like, all hits, right? Like, obviously, the Alpha episode was cool. The Dr. Everett episode was kind of cool. The rest of them kind of, Where do I put it? There, maybe? I think I could afford to move it up. Maybe I can, because we still have the spin-offs to talk about. We'll leave it there, we'll shuffle things around. Maybe, actually... Because the start of Season 5 was kind of fun, wasn't it? I think the start of Season 5 might actually be not that bad, now that I think about it. I think the start of Season 5 was fine. And I think Season 6 might be better than Season 7. This is more thought I've given to Fear than I probably did watching it. Okay. The Walking Dead Season 11. The easiest way to summarize Season 11, this is not like criticism per se, this is not praise per se. Season 11 is a goddamn mess. Because it literally was a mess. They didn't know it was the final season. The Reapers are the weirdest thing anyone has ever written in. Which, by the way, speaking of the bonus episodes, you know what's the biggest hint toward there being no plan for what they're doing? The dude that shows up in the Maggie, was it the Maggie? I think it's the Maggie episode. In the Maggie episode, the dude with the grenade, which was the dumbest thing ever, by the way, he didn't have the Reaper attire when literally every single other Reaper had the same clothes. That's how I think unplanned that whole thing was. He didn't even fit the antagonists. He was just a random NPC who was like a version behind the rest of the game, basically. The Reapers are a mess. The fact that the Oceanside story is revolved off-screen. Season 11 has so many things going for it, like Lance was one of the best villains The Walking Dead has ever had. And he is never, well, I mean, technically, he kind of is in the comic, but he's not really. He's not really. He might as well be exclusive for... Honestly, most of the Commonwealth story might as well be exclusive to the show. So for simplicity's sake, we'll just say that. The Commonwealth core plot is extremely strong. I love the Commonwealth. Which is why I think if you go back to my first ranking video, I actually talked very positively about Season 11. I really, really liked the start of Season 11. It felt like it was taking the comic material and elevating it, you know, like the thing that the adaptation is supposed to do. Not stretching it, not doing weird things with it, not making the people like stormtroopers, which they were, but stormtroopers in the sense of they're dumb, but sometimes have infinite ammo, and just, I don't even know where I'm going with this analogy, but you know what I mean. But the ending of Season 11, first of all, it's not satisfying. Second of all, it's not even an ending because it's a jumping off point for like 15 different spin-offs. Third of all, AMC spoiled most of the show themselves by announcing said spin-offs. And then a lot, just like... Also, the finale is dumb. The fact that I laughed, like most of the... I have my reaction up on Patreon, by the way. You can watch the whole thing. My full uncut reaction to the finale is up on Patreon. The fact that Daryl drops the line of "we're no longer the Walking Dead," or however he says this. He says this, I think he also drops an F-bomb somewhere in there. And then, like, most of the combo just blows up. It's like a whole fireball. It's a weird one. It's a very weird one. It felt indulgent again. I think I'll put Season 11 above Season 10. Because I think the start of it was very, very strong. Actually, no, not the start of it, the middle of it. The start of it was very, 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 very weak. The middle of it with Lance, and like with the actual Commonwealth, and Eugene's story, and freaking, what's-his-face story, Mercer's story, and Princess's story. All that was great. Problem is, most of it went nowhere. That's the biggest problem with it. It's like, I think it's just a matter of they didn't even know that they were supposed to end the show. We'll talk about it in the retrospective, obviously, but, Season 11 is quite literally a mess. Both from a viewing perspective as well as a behind-the-scenes perspective. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess. Okay, let's talk about the spin-offs. I haven't talked about the spin-offs much. Actually, I did. I talked about Dead City. Dead City is exhausting. Maggie and Negan. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Where do I even put it? Dead City was interesting from a scenery perspective. The flashbacks we got of Negan were cool. Expanding the Negan story was also kind of cool. It's definitely, like, looks much better than everything else The Walking Dead has really put out. In terms of, like, budget and everything. But goddamn does it feel uninspired. Also, once again, it has the typical Walking Dead problem. Negan, like, he smashes the dude's face, right? And keep in mind, these are not the saviors. This is not Rick surrounded by 200 dudes. This is not Negan with, like, the human capital that could wipe you out instantly. This is just Negan being Negan. He smashes the dude's face, and immediately the plot is resolved. Again, it's a 6-episode season, I get it, right? But much of the plot in Dead City feels very contrived. And at the very, very end, also, like, Maggie stabs him. That's completely forgotten. It's never brought up again. The most interesting part of Dead City for me is Herschel. I really, really like the story that is, like, with parents who are these supposed heroes, but because they're heroes, they're doing a lot, and they never really have the time to raise their own kids, which is exactly what we see in the comic book with Maggie. And I think that is really, really cool. And if they properly explore the dynamic of Maggie and Herschel, right, who she clearly values a lot because of what happened to Glenn, but he doesn't really value her, and he thinks that her whole obsession with Negan is unhealthy, which it is. I think it could be cool. I think it could be cool. But I just ask AMC to please, for the love of God, Let Maggie have her own thing that is not tied to Negan. It is exhausting to watch the whole thing again. Where do I put it? I'm gonna put it there. Kind of want to move Fear the Walking Dead up, honestly. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. Because Season 9 still has Jesus. Where do I put it? I guess I'll put it there. Maybe actually Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 might actually inch it out. Because Season 4 was like... Season 4 is where they messed up, but like the start of Season 4 was pretty interesting. In hindsight, Season 4 is like really, really bad, for what I think are obvious reasons. But, Daryl Dixon. I've basically not talked about Daryl Dixon at all. I meant to, but other things happened and I got very busy. Daryl Dixon, it started off incredibly strong. It started off really, really strong. We'll see where it goes. Because again, it's Season 2 is already confirmed. There's more than 2 seasons, probably. Well, considering where they're going, I don't think it's going to make too much sense, and I'm going to complain about that again. But, the Daryl show does a lot of interesting things. Again, it's beautiful. The show is gorgeous. The show looks great. The cinematography is much better than, like, Season 10 and 11. I think some of the early parts of the main show, just the way they filmed it, looked better for me. Daryl Dixon, like, if we use the graphics comparison, I think some of the earlier seasons look better, but in terms of, like, pure fidelity, if you can call it that, the Daryl Dixon show definitely looks better. It's a very weird thing, I know, but, like, it has a lot of, like, these cool sprawling shots and everything, right? It just makes the world feel very big, which is great. The starting sequence of Daryl, like, killing all the dudes and the nuns going, the nuns all attacking them with, like, medieval weapons, that was really cool. But at the end, again, Daryl just being saved, and then him staying behind, it just feels, I don't know a better word for it than just contrived. It feels artificial. It doesn't feel like natural for Daryl's character, if that makes sense. Because I'm just thinking about, like, the years he spent looking for Rick, and then he spends, like, 3 days in Paris. And he's like, no, you know what, I actually kind of like it here. I'm obviously dumbing it down for the sake of a joke, but it does kind of feel like that. Again, we'll see what happens with Season 2. The smart walkers seem interesting. The location seems interesting. My biggest props to it is that they are not afraid of using just French. I think it's a really interesting angle that it puts us, because I know a little bit of French. I took French as a third language in school, so I know a little bit of French. But my favorite thing about it is that it kind of it puts us in the same shoes of Daryl in that we understand bits of it because they add subtitles for parts of them, but they don't add subtitles for everything. So when Daryl doesn't understand anything, we also don't understand anything. And I think that is a really, really clever use of, like, language. I like that. I think they should use that a lot more. I think I had some brief notes, actually. I'm just looking through my folders real quick. I might have actually notes on the Daryl show, because I took notes while watching it. Oh yeah, the burners, that was cool. Oh, the opening sequence. The opening sequence of Daryl Dixon, well, not the opening sequence, but like the intro of the show itself, is goddamn brilliant. It's so much cooler than Dead City, it's insane. It still doesn't beat the original. And by original, I mean the one pre-Season 9. Yeah, I talked a bit about the Laurent dude. I like how the thing I have bolded is, why is he flexing that he can solve a Rubik's Cube in 3 minutes and 12 seconds? That is extremely slow. Which is true, by the way. I would show you, but I'm using Rubik's Cubes as a tripod, so I can't show you. Probably without practice, I can probably do it in like a minute now. Solving a Rubik's Cube is incredibly easy, and Laurent is supposed to be like a big brain, right? So 3 minutes for him? Someone hasn't done their research. 3 minutes for a Rubik's Cube is excruciatingly slow. Just FYI. Oh yeah, and then I wrote a bit about the mutiny and the whole how he got there, which I suppose makes sense. My biggest problem with Daryl Dixon already is the whole Carol angle, right? The fact that we know that Carol is going to find him, which to me makes just no sense. Which is, by the way, the same thing goes for Dead City. The same thing goes for parts of Season 11 even. Just how many coincidences there are, and by the way, this also goes for a lot of Fear the Walking Dead. The number of coincidences that happen in like the later seasons of the shows is insane. It's just like everyone always knows where they are. Whereas in reality, finding someone would be insane. Remember how Michonne spent months looking after the governor and found nothing? If Michonne was looking for the governor in the final season, She'd find him in 35 minutes. It's kind of funny. I was watching your ranking right now and you're doing another stream. How different is it? Because I don't remember my original ranking. I think it's very different. With the exception of these, because these are like, I could talk about these forever. I love the early show so much. I'm gonna put this, and then I think I can afford to move this up. I think that looks decent. Season 3, Season 4, Season 5, still probably my favorite stretch of The Walking Dead. Briefly interrupted by Fear the Walking Dead Season 3. Leading into the start of the Saviors, this was when I was losing my mind about The Walking Dead. I remember I mentioned this before, right? These random moments that I remember while I was still watching the show. I remember that the teaser for the finale of Season 6 accidentally leaked a week earlier. So instead of the teaser for episode 15, the teaser for episode 16 leaked. And that's where we saw the Saviors. Like the full car of them with like Simon in the front, right? God damn, that was a time to be alive. Take me back. Take me back. I think the biggest changes that I've made is this. Is season 7 to like 11 basically. Because now that I've been working on the retrospectives and actually like diving into all the nooks and crannies of the later seasons, the cracks are really there. Especially season 10. Season 10, in many ways, feels like a dumber season than season 8. And by dumb, I mean like the rules of the world fall apart, right? Like actions are just not followed through. It's the same thing like Daryl one-tapping the dude with the frickin' machine gun. That happens in season 10 like 10 times. And also the siege on Hilltop in season 10 kind of gives me the Long Night vibes now that I think about it. You know how in the Long Night is in the Long Night, if you look at the way their battle like their dudes are formed, their catapults are at the very, very front, right? So when they're attacked, the first thing that's gonna go are the catapults, which makes no sense. It literally makes no sense. And it's kind of the same thing with the siege on Hilltop in season 10. It's like they're away from the wall, but not close enough to the wall so that archers could back them up. And they also don't have like trenches digged out, and they don't really have anything except the electrical barbed wire, which kind of also doesn't make any sense. And then you have Megna going in through the horde, which is like, yeah, you're gonna get shot probably, but you didn't because it's Walking Dead season 10, not Fear the Walking Dead. Yeah. I think this is fine. Like I said, I didn't talk much about the final season. The best thing about the final season, most of it makes no sense, is like literally everyone who was once dead, with the exception of Nick, probably the only character who people cared about, is gone. Not is gone, is back, right? So Madison returns, the frickin' what's-his-face? Troy is back, everyone's back. Everyone's fine. Alicia is back, everyone's fine. Nothing bad happens. The best thing about the ending is that they actually just part ways, and there is at least some level of closure, right? And the timelines kind of now match up, and Morgan says that he's gonna go back. So, if they are setting up this whole Clash MCU type deal, we might see Morgan in the main universe again. That's at least, I think, what they're aiming for. Other than that, though, not much to say. The weirdest thing about Season 11 for me, I will talk about this in the retrospective as well. The biggest thing that people keep, like firing back at me for is that I say the later seasons of the show don't have stakes. The deaths that happen feel artificial and they never really carry weight, you know? Like the last major death of the show, I still think is Henry, which is insane to me, because that's the end of Season 9. Let me explain. In the comic book, we have the Andrea death, which is probably the biggest death in the entire story. It is insane. It breaks the story wide open. It breaks Rick. The entire story comes crumbling down with Dwight. Everything is bad. Everything is horrible, right? In the show, we have the Rosita death, which is closely replicated to the Andrea death. But the thing is, with the Andrea death, there is a reason for her death. She propels Rick forward. Rosita dies in the season finale. There is no story there. There is literally no point in her death, really. Unless you mean wrapping up the whole thing and then they all say, yeah, we're now buddies and everything's great. There is no through line to Rosita's death. I haven't heard her say this, but I think it would be very, very funny if Rosita's actress, what's her name? Christian Serratos? Something like that? Something like that. I think it would be very, very funny if the reason why she wanted to be killed off, because I think she said that she wants to be killed off. I'm almost certain that she said that that her character should die. It would be so funny if the reason why she said that is because she wanted her character to have closure. It's like, I'm dead, you can never bring me back. Because she is kind of the only character who gets closure. She can't be brought back because she's dead. Season 11 is a mess. Do you think we will see any feared characters show up in spin-offs? God, I hope not. Well, honestly, I don't even care. I kind of don't. If they want to do them, I might check them out, but I'm not invested in any of them. I'm just not. Because they've been already built up as legends. Is the same reason why I'm not that hyped about the Daryl show, because Daryl is always safe. Like, making a spin-off about a certain character already implies that there is no danger in this story. That was the balancing act that The Walking Dead always walked. You need to tell a narrative, but still everyone needs to feel like they are in danger. So, we all know that chances are that Rick is safe. We think he should be safe. Even though Robert Kirkman has said that he almost killed Rick, like in the prison era. That's why The Walking Dead was genius. Because even though we had protagonists, like the main characters, we thought they were in danger. Because that is what people like say, again, a counter criticism to me saying that people don't feel like they're in danger. Well, they never did. Yes, they did. Don't lie to me. When you were watching season 1, 2, and 3, you definitely thought some of these main characters were in danger. That is why the show was successful. Because everyone genuinely was in danger. Anyone could die at any moment. Just like Lori did. In season 3, episode 4, one of the greatest episodes. He was great. The only character that I'm like really, well, the only characters I'm really interested in is Michonne and Rick, basically. I want to see him reunite with obviously RJ and Judith, because that whole thing just feels like poor RJ and Judith. Poor RJ and Judith. That's like the only really thing that I want to see in the AMC universe anymore. If somehow they manage to recapture the flame that was the original Walking Dead, I'll be right back. But the reason why I'm sort of starting to... it's kind of like, people say this a lot with World of Warcraft, by the way. People say they want a new World of Warcraft, right? But the problem with a new World of Warcraft is it would be made by the people who currently make World of Warcraft, right? I'm just going to use this example because why not? So, that kind of implies that, like, even though you would make a new thing, it would have the exact same problems of the original. And that's what I mean by these spin-offs. I will give them all a shot, but I feel like nothing will change because they are still largely made by the same people, right? So the whole main character problem that I have with the main show in the later seasons is present in all of these spin-offs. When The Ones Who Live comes out, we'll do this again. We'll see how I've swapped my opinions around. I'm not even going to look at my old tier list now. If you want to look at it, the video is on the channel. I don't want to move stuff around. This is like my gut feeling that I have right now. You know I am the most indecisive person on the planet, so I might change things again. For now, though, this is how I feel about it. Maybe once I finish the retrospective on season 11, I'm also gonna push it down because I'm like, oh my god, there's so many problems with this, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe, because obviously when I'm actually writing videos, I think about it a lot more. I spend like an ungodly amount of time thinking about the show, really. Just thinking about, oh my god, I spent 2 years covering the show. It's been like 2 years since I started the series, it's insane. People say they don't want, like, zombie shows anymore. The biggest complaint about The Last of Us is that there wasn't enough zombies. People literally complained that The Last of Us didn't have enough zombies, and you tell me people don't like zombies anymore? No, they don't. They just don't like Walking Dead because it's kind of bad. Of course people like zombies. People always like zombies. How would you wipe it clean? I mean, completely. Just make a completely new show with completely new characters with literally zero links to the original. Wipe it completely clean. Don't make a spin-off with like Daryl Dixon in another place in the world, because it's still Daryl Dixon. We know Daryl Dixon. Wipe it completely clean. An animated Walking Dead would be genius? Yes. The best thing about an animated show is that you would never run into problems like Andrew Lincoln wanting to leave. You can recast a voice far easier than you can recast a person. If they made The Walking Dead animated... Oh boy. Okay, you know, I'm gonna say it right now. You ready? If they make an animated Walking Dead series, I'm going to make a over-analyzing The Walking Dead series on the main channel, just like I'm doing with Attack on Titan. Every single episode, I will talk about every single thing I've ever wanted to talk about. Every single one. There's going to be like 30, 40-minute videos on every single episode. So AMC, if you want to hear more of my rambling, make an animated show. But like, yeah, jokes aside, first of all, censorship is not a big deal. Second of all, it is... comparatively, you can do things that you could never do in live action, right? The paradoxical thing about doing live action versus animated is that a lot of stuff is actually easier to do in live action, right? Because the Walking Dead setting, there's a reason why people memed that most of it takes place during forests, right? Forests are cheap. You can get your dudes, and you can shoot for literally days in a forest. It costs nothing. It is easy to do. All you need to do is bring your cameras and get your costume departments. That's basically it, right? In animation, paradoxically, making that forest is probably going to take longer because you need to draw it all. On the flip side, though, action in live action is incredibly expensive. It is insanely expensive. That's why all-out war kind of made no sense, and we just got shots of like everyone firing into nothing because that was cheap. You just give them like weapons and they just shoot at something. Comparatively in animation, obviously it's also much harder than stills, but compared to actually doing like real-life explosions that you must get right, and there are a lot of things in action that you can only do once, right? You need to get it with a single take. In animation, you can draw it. It's comparatively easier, you know. So there is that weird inverse relationship between costs. But whatever the case, if there was an animated show, like I said, clip it and ship it. I'd make an over-analyzing series on it. Where does The Walking Dead Destinies rank on that list? You have no idea. Oh my god. When people... Oh my god. I thought I was... What do you call... It's not like imposter syndrome. But you know, like, when everyone is saying something, and you're the only one saying the opposite thing, right? You naturally begin to question, wait, maybe I'm the wrong one, right? Like, maybe something's wrong with me. No way that all of them are wrong, right? Because I'm just thinking about, like, when the trailer came out and I was reading some of the comments, and people were like, don't judge it by the cover, don't judge it by this, don't judge it by that, don't judge it by that. And I'm like, bro, it's made by a farming studio. They put out a trailer that looks worse than PS2 era. Everything about this is a red flag. What do you mean? And they were like, no. Judging things by graphics is pathetic. I'm like, bro, I'm not talking about the graphics. I never mentioned the graphics. It looks like a toaster. One of my favorite games is like a freaking Factorio and RimWorld. What do you mean? I literally couldn't care. Actually, no. One of my favorite games is Valheim. Look at Valheim. And by the way, another thing. There is a difference between graphics and a game looking bad. Because Walking Dead Destinies has bad graphics and it looks bad. Valheim has bad graphics, but it looks incredible. Valheim is beautiful. There's a difference between style and fidelity. Oh my god. I was reading those comments and I was genuinely starting to think like, wait, no way, right? No way that I'm seeing something that is like, I couldn't be this wrong. Like, I've been following games for literally over a decade. Like, what do you mean? Oh, it's insane. This is the tier list. If you have your own tier list, feel free to send it out at me on like Twitter or something. I don't know. If it is anything except this, you have bad taste. There is no subjectivity in this at all. I've once again made the grave mistake on the internet of not disclosing sarcasm, so let me just say /S.